Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Obsessive Compulsive Gaming. I am the Obsessive Compulsive Gamer, and this is my review for Resident Evil Outbreak. So, dear viewers, this particular video game originally released all the way back in 2003. And just like that beautiful bearded bastard Barry Burton, you're probably wondering,
what is this?
Resident Evil Outbreak is a survival horror online multiplayer video game thingamajig that originally released on the PlayStation 2. Being part of the oh-so-popular Resident Evil franchise, we play as one of 8 possible characters with unique abilities and make our way through a series of episodic storylines that take place during the events of Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. As you all know, I'm a massive fan of the Resident Evil franchise. But is this game any good? Well, well, let's find out as I review this survival horror multiplayer video game thingamajig the only way I know how. Badly. And let's start with what I really enjoy about Resident Evil Outbreak. Like I said, dear viewer, this is an episodic video game, so that means we get to play through not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 different storylines, each of which take place in a completely different location. One is in a university, one is in Umbrella's oh-so-secret underground laboratory, another mostly takes place in a bar, and so on and so forth. And I found this to be rather refreshing. Not in the same way as a whiskey and soda, you understand. More like a multi-pack of different fruit juices, each one being slightly different from the last. I'm also very glad that we get to make our way through these locations, not using bloody tank controls. And yes, I know there are defenders out there for tank controls, but if I wanted to control a human being like a bloody tank, then I'd stick an antenna up their backside and control them using a remote control. Now, I can't say for absolute certain if this was the first Resident Evil game that allowed you to control your characters not using tank controls, but I've got a feeling that it was. And I was glad for that. I was also glad that we get to choose from not 6, not 7, but 8 different characters. And like I've already hinted, they all have their own abilities. But this particular playthrough, to celebrate the upcoming Resident Evil Requiem, which you can bet your third nipple is going to tie into this game in some fashion, I chose to play as Alyssa Ashcroft. And in fact, it's her daughter, along with Leon Kennedy, that we get to play as in Resident Evil Requiem. In fact, I'd never noticed it before, but at the very end of this game, there's a cutscene showing a ruined and derelict Raccoon City, with the nasty Umbrella still plotting some nefarious scheme from a watchtower that they've somehow set up there. Speaking of all the different characters, at one point or another, this game could be played online using your trusty PlayStation 2, which meant that you could play through these scenarios cooperatively. There was no voice chat, mind you, which I suppose would have made it slightly tricky to tell your fellow players what to do, what to pick up, where to go. But sadly, I was unable to play the online version of this game back in 2003, and I don't play on PC now, where I understand there's quite a community for playing this game online. I think they set up their own servers or some such nonsense. I'm not technologically minded, which is probably why it takes me 45 minutes each evening just to turn on my vibrator. Anyway, if you are a PC gamer, you'll be very glad to hear that if you want to play this online, there's a very good chance that you might be able to. And I can only imagine that that would be a complete blast. Going into the gameplay a little bit, once you've selected your character, it's pretty much business as usual for the Resident Evil franchise. In each scenario, you'll have to shoot zombies, solve very simplistic puzzles, mostly involving looking for a code to input into a computer, finding keys for doors, fighting bosses, all of that good bollocks. This being a PlayStation 2 game as well, it also looks a lot nicer than those ancient, decrepit Resident Evil games that we had on the PlayStation 1. Just such a shame that outside of certain cutscenes, the game doesn't really have full-on voice acting. On the contrary, occasionally the AI companions who come along with you in these scenarios, if you're not playing the game online, will just shout out the most random sentences like, "Stop hurting me," and "Yes, I'm still here," and "Ooh, doesn't that zombie have a big bum?" Just to clarify, that's not any of the phrases that they shout out. I just can't remember any of them right now. But I can assure you they are just as random as all of that. And yes, I can confirm that the zombie I'm talking about did indeed have a big bum and childbearing hips. Speaking about the cutscenes, I really enjoyed all the FMB cutscenes that we got in this game, especially this game's intro sequence, which I think might be the absolute best of the entire franchise. I say intro sequence, but it's really the credit sequence. And if you're a fan of Resident Evil 2, I'm sure you'll be able to figure out what's going on in this particular sequence. It also has an absolutely splendid music track over it. And all in all, the soundtrack for this game, though I can't exactly remember who composed it, was pretty damn good. So, the bollocks. Well, I've already mentioned all of them, I think. There's no voice acting outside of the cutscenes. If you are playing the game online, unless the PC gamers have figured out a way around it, there's no voice chat. Obviously, if you're playing this on PlayStation 2, you're not going to be able to play online, which is a terrible shame. And obviously, this kind of goes without saying if you're coming here expecting a mainline Resident Evil entry, in which you're going to play as Leon or Claire or Chris Redfield. You can't, but you can play as Alyssa Ashcroft, and it might give you some insight into what's going on in Resident Evil Requiem. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But for what it is, this is a very fun, episodic style Resident Evil game with lots of varied locations, plenty of zombie shooting action, and all of that. Find a key to open this particular door nonsense that all of us Resident Evil fanboys and fangirls enjoy so much. Therefore, I declare that Resident Evil Outbreak is splendid. So, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, another review by yours truly. If you enjoyed this little review of mine, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. If you haven't enjoyed it, well then, you can feel free to give me a thumbs down. But please remember the single most important thing I always tell you, dear viewer, and that is to always stay obsessed with gaming. Are you still here? Oh, you must have really enjoyed this video then. In that case, you had better subscribe to the channel and check out our other content. Otherwise, you're a booby pants, and no one wants to be a booby pants.